Alright, so I just went for a run and I found this space heater on the side of the road, and I haven't even plugged it in yet, so let's see if it works or not. Well, LED lights up. Nothing. Let's see if we can fix this. In my experience, there's usually three things that can go wrong with a space heater. First, the motor can seize up. Second, a thermal fuse trips because it gets too hot. Or third, the switch that controls power just stops working. And in this case, it was the switch. Let's see what the issue is here. Spins pretty freely. So whenever I turn the knob, this little thing slides back and forth. Let's plug it in and see what happens. Hopefully we won't get electrocuted. It should go without saying that plugging one of these things in while the container is open is not a very good idea in general. There are better ways to check for electrical faults, and preferred way, I think, is to completely unplug the system and use a continuity tester to check to see where there's a break in the circuit. When I try to poke at this switch using a screwdriver, I'm making sure that my hand is always on the fiberglass handle, and I'm only poking the plastic part of the switch. Still, definitely not the safest idea. So that's all the way off. Turn this to high. It sparks. Where are there sparks happening? Well, if I hold that. Alright, there's something wrong with this little lever here. So the problem is this needs to make contact, this left plate needs to make contact with this right one. And it was making partial contact, but kind of sparking. The leftmost plate, I'm sure, changes its position as a function of the heater's temperature. So if it gets too hot, it'll just shut off the circuit. Alright, so it's this middle right one that needs to connect with this middle left one. That's what closes this circuit. So how does that happen? Ah, there's the contacts. It's in between the two right there. If you can see it. I think that's what's sparking. Alright, so I've just tried to spend some time figuring out what this switch does. This is actually a switch that controls whether power flows to the heater or not based on whether the heater is tipped or not. So you can tell that's what it is because it's hanging normally like that. Then the two contacts in the middle meet, but if you tip, then it separates the two plates and there's no contact anymore. All right, those contacts in there, it's not really focusing, but those contacts in there are kind of dirty, so I'm going to try to clean them off with a rag and some alcohol. Take a little paper towel. Dip it in some alcohol. Alcohol is usually pretty safe to work on with electronics. Let's see if we can widen that gap. Alright, so basically what I did was I made two changes. I trimmed the edge off of this little weight piece here that keeps current from flowing if the thing tips over. And then I also just I bent this plate back so that the contacts contact more frequently. I just bent this so that that contact was a little bit more solid. See, right now it's just barely not connecting, but at room temperature right now, if we close it, I guess that was opening it. So it's clearly open right now, but if we close that gap and this thing is aligned right, those contacts are solidly touching, and hopefully the thing will run. Alright, now let's just see if this thing shuts off when we tip it over. Oh. Sort of did. Oh. Well, it had gotten to the point where it looked like I wasn't going to be able to fix this part. And I looked online and I was only able to find 400 of them for sale in bulk for like a few dollars each. So that wasn't happening. So instead, I just decided to take that entire part out and put in basically just an on-off switch. And here I'm stripping the wires that used to be connected to the old switch and putting on some heat shrink that I'll use to cover the connections to the switch. And then I'll put that new switch in. I ordinarily would have soldered these connections, but I didn't have my soldering iron with me, so if this thing fails in the near future, that'll be the first thing I check. The hole in the front of the box wasn't quite big enough to fit the switch through, so I had to make some amendments. Cutting the hole out with wire snips like this is not the best way to do it, and it also leaves a pretty nasty edge. But thankfully the screw on the front of the switch that holds it in was able to cover most of those burrs. The only real issue with this simple on-off switch is that now there's no tip-over protection. So if the thing falls over right onto its face, there's a chance that whatever it's laying on top of would catch on fire. I was definitely playing fast and loose with the safety on this project, but if a space heater burns your house down, that just makes it a really efficient space heater.